Hi guys, welcome. Danny here from the Magic Junk Drawer. So I'm going live in today because this week coming up is totally crazy for me. I'm subbing like crazy. I don't know if I'm gonna get a chance to do a lot of videos. So I figure, well, I have the time today. I'm gonna do the astrology and then I'm gonna talk a little bit about yoga. So first, the weekly astrology. Mercury is right now retrograde in Scorpio, which kind of it can make you feel a little bit paranoid. You might feel like you don't trust people or you feel like you've been betrayed. There could be a lot of issues like that coming up. So I would say don't overreact, don't do anything until like give it a week or so, because on Thursday, I believe it is, Mercury is going to station direct and begin to move forward. So that's going to help with getting through the Scorpio, darkness. There's a new moon in Sagittarius on Friday, which will start to bring us good luck, faith. It's going to start expanding our horizons and things are going to start to shift. So it won't be feeling as heavy and as paranoid or like it is right now, or, like untrusting. Whatever it is that you might be feeling, don't overreact right now because I think it's going to pass and I don't think it's that big of a deal. Okay, so now I wanted to talk a little bit about yoga because I get a lot of questions. People that want to go take a yoga class, they don't know what to expect. So I figured we'll talk about the different types of yoga. The first yoga I ever did, I took at a community college because I was lazy and I thought it would be easy. And it was just called Hatha Yoga, which is basically every yoga that you do physically is Hatha Yoga. But a lot of times, studios don't really specify always the different types of yoga because each teacher may be trained differently. So, for example, I have been trained in the hot yoga. Well, in hot yoga, I did 2 teacher trainings in the heat. My third teacher training wasn't in heat. So let's talk about hot yoga first, even though that was not my first yoga that I did. It was the first teacher training I did. I started off doing regular yoga, so when I went and took my first hot yoga class, the studio at the time that I went to had 2 different rooms going on. There was one that I think they just called it Vinyasa Flow. I think that's what they called it. And the other one was the Hot 26. So the Hot 26 is it's the Bikram series. It's what Bikram brought here from India. And it's funny because that is the original hot yoga. So if you're going to a Bikram studio that is only Bikram, you're only going to take a Bikram class. And the room will be heated to about 105 degrees at around 50% humidity, and you're going to sweat like hell, and you're probably going to really love it because people love it. It is the same 26 postures done twice. Every posture is done twice except for the final twist, which is only done once. And it is the same no matter who teaches the class on what day. It's always going to be the same. Now, the way that the sequence is constructed, you go from one posture into the next because the first posture takes you there. For example, I got a book here, but like you're not going to do eagle before chair, okay? Because chair, you have to be able to sit down like that, right? And now eagle, you're sitting like that and your arms are wrapped and your legs are wrapped. So basically, the first posture that you do leads you into the second posture, which then leads you into the third posture. And there's a reason for everything that you do. And there are no variations given. The only variation that I ever give is the final twist if somebody's having a hard time doing it because it's important, or if somebody has had a knee injury. Like one woman had a knee replacement and the tree pose in the Bikram series is just too difficult for her right now. So she takes a variation, that's fine. But most of the time, the teachers are not going to give modifications. And if you try to do something different, they are going to scold you. And if you're in the room with a real Bikram teacher, you will get yelled at. So the first time I went into this studio, they told me I had to take so many months of this class before I could move on to the other. And because I figured they knew better than me, lipstick on my teeth whenever I wear this color. I listened. Now, after a couple of months, I was really getting bored with doing the same thing over and over again. And these postures were different from the postures that I knew. For example, the triangle in Bikram's class is different from the triangle that I was doing. So it was different. And what it was great for is getting used to being in the heat, especially someone who's never spent that much time in the heat. You start to get acclimated to the heat before you move on to the next class. So my suggestion, if you wanted to take a hot class, I would start with that class. But sometimes it's like life just it doesn't always, this lipstick. Sometimes you can't fit it into your schedule. The class is an hour and a half long. Sometimes you just don't have that kind of time, or you're at work when the class is going on. So my suggestion would be to take whatever it is that fits into your schedule in your town, in whatever studio that you go to. Now, if you take what's called a Vinyasa flow class, that class is never going to be the same. It's always going to be different. Usually the teacher will pick a peak posture that you work towards through the class. So, for example, if my peak posture was going to be revolving half moon, we would do things leading up to revolving half moon. You would probably do a standing split, you would do a warrior 3, revolving triangle that would lead you to that. And I tend to, or I've been told that I tend to warm people up or more than other teachers. Maybe it's because of the teacher that taught me was very particular about postures that you did that had to come before certain ones. Like, she wasn't big on throwing on something crazy in the middle of a class, because a lot of times people can't do it. So, and you could get hurt. Not that you're going to get really hurt, but you could pull a muscle or you could tweak something. And why? What's the point of that? So that's me personally. Now, I've taken classes with teachers where I thought that they've done some wacky things and I've really enjoyed the class. So, it's no judgment on my part. I don't care what someone else does. It's just the way that I teach, because that's the way I was taught. So if you take a flow class, you're not going to know what's coming next. But the thing is that if you continue to practice and you're consistent and you're always there, you're going to learn the posture. So you're going to know the difference between the one triangle and the other triangle and the different half moons, because you're going repeatedly. Now, I have a video on my channel where I go over some basic yoga postures that will be in Vinyasa flow classes. So you can watch that so that you'll have an idea. But once again, it's like all the teachers are trained by different teachers, and they may do things a little bit different. And my suggestion would be to listen to what the teacher says, because they have a plan in mind, unless something hurts. So if you're doing a posture and there is just pain somewhere, that's a sign that something is just not right. Back out of it. And in any yoga class, most of the teachers will say at the beginning, if you need to lay down and take a break, take a break. So back to the hot yoga lineage. I mean, now this is the Bikram series. This man has been doing yoga since he's like 3 years old. He grew up, well, I don't know how old he was when he came to America, but he spent a lot of, his youth in India, where it's very hot, and practicing yoga, and he was very flexible. So it's a little bit different, him as the teacher and what he's learned compared to the rest of us that grew up in, like, especially the New York, New Jersey area, where it's cold 6 months out of the year, and we spend most of our lives sitting in a car, in a desk. There's going to be a big difference between what we can expect his body to do and what we can expect somebody who shows up at yoga for the first time at 35, which doesn't mean that you can't do it. You could start yoga at any point, because there's going to be a level where you can go to, and that's going to be where you go until you get past it, and you're going to get past it. And what's funny is, this guy that comes to my class, I hadn't seen him in a really long time. I don't even know how long, but a long time. So he comes, he takes my class on Saturday, and I said to him after class, I go, I haven't seen you in a long time. I could really see the difference in your practice. And he was like, yeah, you could lie to me. And I'm like, no, I don't give out compliments willy-nilly. I really don't. I will never tell somebody that I think that they did something great unless I really think they did something great. So I could see the difference in his practice, and he said that he's basically only been coming once a week, which really isn't a lot. I mean, we have some people that come every day. and that he likes all the different instructors, so he likes to try to get everybody's class in. So that's why I hadn't seen him, because he's kind of rotating through different teachers. But the point being is that even though he's only coming once a week, I was still able to notice a huge difference in his practice from the way it was when he first started coming back. And he wasn't new when he started with me. He had been taking classes previously and fallen off the wagon, which is what happens. You know, we're human. We have a lot going on, and sometimes we have the time to take a lot of classes, and sometimes we don't. So you do what you can. Now, the other types of yoga, well, all right, let's go through the ones that I'm trained in, because I can speak better on those. So hot yoga, if you go to a hot yoga studio that is a Bikram studio, it will be about 100, 105 degrees, depending on how many people are in the room, what the weather's like outside, the type of heat that that studio has. Like the studio I worked for has an amazing heating system. I don't have to do anything. It regulates itself. If the room gets too hot, it shuts itself down. If the room's not hot enough, the humidity goes up. Like, it knows how to work itself, where I don't have to do anything to it. I've subbed at studios where I have to get there a half hour early, turn the heat on. It's a different system. So it depends on the studio that you go to. Some people, they just love the heat and it can never be hot enough. There are other people that never seem to get used to the heat because it seems like their head is more, it's more like that they're stuck in their head about it. When you think about it, on a hot summer day, when you get into your car, it's hotter in the car than it is in the yoga room. And you don't think twice about getting in there. Yeah, you roll down the window, but you're not going into a room that's heated to 200 degrees. It's only going to get so hot, and then it's going to come down. But there is a difference. If you have a class that's got 3 people in it, or you have a class that has 60 people in it, and I've been in classes teaching and taking where there's been 60 people, so it does get pretty intense, but it's a lot of fun. So with hot yoga, that's the Bikram heat, and that's what the Bikram series was done in. Now, most of the time, if you go to a studio that's hot yoga but they don't do Bikram, it won't be that hot. It might be like 90 degrees, because generally speaking, vinyasa doesn't really need to be done in the heat, because you're going to build heat from just continuously moving. And most of the time, there's not that many breaks. Bikram, you're going to have certain breaks. There's going to be times where, you're laying down flat on your back. Like, that's just the sequence. And that's what people love about it. That's also what people hate about it. So when I first started going to the studio years ago, I used to love that. I knew what was coming next, because I would take the harder class first, which would knock me out. And then mentally, I could walk myself through the Bikram class because I knew it. And I'm like, oh, we're almost done. Oh, we got about 12 minutes left. So it was easier for me to go through it. Sometimes people find it to be very boring. They may only come in and take it because it's what's on the schedule and it's what fits into their schedule. But you know what? Some people love it, some people don't. You'll find what you like. You got to try them. That's it. So if you go to a studio that's not a Bikram studio and doesn't teach that, the studio won't be as hot. It could probably be maybe 95 degrees, something like that. I've even seen studios where it's like 80 degrees. The thing about the heat, well, especially in the Bikram series with the way the alignment is, you need to be in a hot room, because doing that series not hot can be very, very difficult. Like I said, this is a man who was grown up doing this since he's a little kid, and his body is just different than the rest of, us that were not doing it since 3 or 5 or whatever it was. So it's different. And everybody's body is so different. It's like you got people that they're bigger on top and they have smaller bottoms, and vice versa. People that have bigger bottoms and smaller tops. It's hard to put everybody in the same room and expect that everyone's going to be able to do the same thing. What I can tell you that's pretty fascinating is some of the most difficult postures I can see somebody do, totally nail it, and struggle with the easier ones, the ones that are like not that hard. Like, it's amazing. Everyone has that one posture that they can just kill, and then they have that one posture that they can't wait to get out of. So everyone's body is different. That's just it. Sometimes it comes down to genetics. Sometimes it's lifestyle. Somebody that spent their whole life maybe as a mailman walking might find it different than someone that spent their whole life sitting at a desk. You know, the person sitting at the desk may be a little bit crunchier and stiff, and the person that spent their whole life walking miles a day may find it easier. Everyone's different. You got to have a starting point, and you just have to go from there. So, personally, I prefer to take a flow class because I think that they're more fun. I think that they're more exciting, and you can get a teacher that could really, get a lot out of you. And what do I mean by that? Like, it's not just about getting a workout in. I'm a long distance. With yoga, what happens is the body holds on to emotions. So something happens to you and you hold on to it. And when you go through these yoga postures and you start to open up things that don't get open, if we don't always open our side bodies, we tend to be kind of crunchy in the side body, especially if we sit a lot. So getting all this stuff open can help to release some of the emotions that we've been holding in. And I've told this story before, but in case you haven't heard it, when I was little, I was much smaller than most of the kids. And when we went on the seesaw, the kids would hold me up in the air, and then they would get off, and I would smash my butt down. I would hit my tailbone, and every time they would promise me that they wouldn't do it. It wasn't always one kid. Everyone did it to me. And I would always get on it like an idiot. Anyhow, so I'm taking this class one day, and after years of not thinking about this, all of a sudden that just came up. Like how angry I was at myself for allowing that to happen, how angry I was with those kids for treating me like that. But it was something that my body was holding on to. So mentally, I maybe forgot about it for all these years, but my body had it, and it came up during this class. And I remember thinking, wow, how funny is that? That came out. Something that was happening to me at 5, 6 years old. And here it is X amount of years later, and now it just popped into my head. So that's another part of yoga that, helps to clean out all those old emotional lipstick on my teeth. Old emotional things that we hold on to, that we just can't let go of. And we're not conscious of it. It's unconscious. And the other thing about the heat, you warm up faster in heat. So even at running, I can go out for a run in the summer so much faster, so much easier than in the wintertime. It takes me a lot longer to warm up because the cold is just not easy on the body. We tend to, when we're cold, right? Well, this is not good, right? You want to be like this, shoulders up by your ears, because you're freezing, you're trying to stay warm. It's harder on the body, and that's just all there is to it. So you just going into the heat, detoxifying, sweating like that, you're sweating out all kinds of impurities, all kinds of, toxins and stuff. It's just like when they say, when you get a cold, drink fluid so you flush it out. Well, that's the same thing. When you sweat, you're flushing it out. You're cleaning out your system. And, you want to clean out all that stuff. So what else? I'm trained in, my last teacher training was therapeutic yoga. And what I loved about that was that it really helped me to go deeper in my postures. Like the difference between being able to stand there and hold something that like I was just holding it. Like I could have stood there forever like that. But I wasn't really engaging the muscles. Like learning how to engage different muscles that, like when the teacher would say it, like I don't even have control over it. For example, it took me a long time to learn how to engage the muscles of my inner thighs, which once you learn to strengthen your inner thighs, it helps with people that have back pain because it helps to stabilize the pelvis. And what was happening with me is, I think from spending so much time standing on the hard floor working at A&P, I was having a lot of back issues, and sometimes my back would go out and it was just brutal. But working on strengthening my inner thighs has helped me with, I mean, my hips are off, but that's a whole other story. So learning how to stabilize that and engage my inner thigh muscles, because, and I'll tell you how you can tell. Take a look at your sneakers. If your sneakers are heavily worn on the outside, it's usually because you're stronger on the outside part of your leg. So for example, my quads and my glutes are much stronger than my inner thighs. So they take on the weight. So when I'm running, I am running with my quads and my glutes. And if you looked at me, you would be like, yeah, that's where her muscles are, like that. Meanwhile, my inner thighs, not so much. Now, somebody that maybe was a soccer player may have stronger inner thighs, and their shoes may wear more on the inside of their feet because they're kicking the ball and they're using their inner thigh muscles. Where me, from running all these years, I'm using my quads and I'm using my glutes. So, anyhow, what you want is to balance that. Neither one is good or bad. You want to find the happy medium, which is what we're looking for with yoga. So, a lot of times people will come in, and I hear this all the time. So funny. I'm going to be really bad at this. I'm not flexible. Well, you don't have to be flexible. It's not about being more flexible than somebody else. What it is about going deeper in your own practice so that you can reach the benefits and you can do something that you want to do. Like, whatever is important to you. Like for some people, they come in because it helps them with back pain. It helped me with back pain. Pilates is fantastic for the back. It's so good for the back. It really helps to fix what's not working right. Other people come in because they mentally need it. They feel like it helps the mental. They feel like they have more control over themselves when they're doing yoga. There's a million reasons why people come, but I think that if you can find the balance between, working really hard and then taking the time to relax or meditate in the shavasana part is really hard. And I got to tell you, and this is not a judgment call because it is what it is, but I could have a room full of 30 people, and when I'm walking them through shavasana, if I can get them to stay, like sometimes it's like I'm talking and they're trying to like run me over to get to the door. They're tapping or they're, moving around, hitting the floor. It's very hard for us to stay still because we're just in a society where we gotta go, we got this to do, we have that to do. I don't have time to meditate. Well, look, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not a big meditation person, but what I do that I find to be helpful, if I get to yoga a few minutes before, I have to really be there. Get there 5 minutes early. I'll just sit in the car, just like with no radio on, nothing. Or I'll just go into the room and I'll just sit in the yoga room for a few minutes without the cell phone, without anything, just to, kind of take a minute to clear your mind because we have so much going on and we don't take time to just chill out. And that's what I liked about the flow class. The flow class forced me to pay attention, where the Hot 26 class, if I knew what was coming next, I could kind of zone out. And the therapeutic teacher training helped me to learn how to go deeper into the postures. I still have a hard time activating my calf muscles. I have a very hard time even feeling them. I know, it's bizarre. It's bizarre, but like think of it. Like if I said to you, engage your calf muscle, could you? I'm trying to right now and I can't. You know how I can? If I press down into the four corners of my feet and lift my toes, then I feel the calf muscle engage. But if my toes are down, I can't seem to do that. It's like they're just not strong muscles. That's it. And some people have stronger inner thighs. Some people have stronger outer thighs. It's the way it is. The stronger muscles are always going to want to take over, and the weaker muscles are always going to want to let them. So you really have to make it mental to what am I working? What's going on here? And then it's funny because when you're in heat, like I was just talking to a student the other day, it can kind of put you in a fog. Like sometimes I'll say something, and after class somebody will say to me, oh, you mentioned squeeze your inner thighs together or something, and that really did the trick. And I'm like, I say that every class, but they finally heard it. And sometimes it is because the heat has kind of like made you a little bit foggy, which is okay. Listen, if we went into every class and did everything perfect every time, we would have nothing to work for and it would just be really boring. So you know what? If you are able to see your own progress, then that's a good thing. And I have seen people come in that can't touch their toes, and then after a few weeks, they're like doing headstand. This is my favorite story. This man used to come to my class. I haven't seen him in a while, and he was one of those guys that he just had like, he was just like such a laid back guy, and like nothing bothered him. Like he was just like a laid back guy. And but for some reason, he had a hard time with the heat. So every class he would leave. And that's like the biggest thing. It's like stay in the room. It's for a couple of reasons. Number one, if you are going to pass out, you don't want to pass out somewhere and nobody knows that you're there. Nobody passes out. Nobody. I mean, I'm not going to say nobody. It can happen. But in all the years that I've been teaching, one person got lightheaded once. And he was dehydrated. But it's it's not that hot. It's not. It's more your mind. Just make sure that you're well hydrated. That's it. Because the more water that you drink, the more you're going to sweat, the more comfortable you're going to feel, the less you're going to feel the heat. That's it. But for some reason, mentally, this guy had this issue, and he used to leave class. And you don't want to leave the room. Besides, going in and out from hot to cold, it's not easy on the body. It's harder on the body. And like mentally you think, oh, it's colder out there, that's what I need. But your body is like, can't regulate. But I know that he was fine. You can tell when somebody's having a hard time. And most of the time people know, and they'll just lay down. I mean, just take a break. And then you got to think of it like this too. Once you get on the floor, it's X amount of degrees colder on the floor, but not as drastic as leaving the room. So you are getting a little bit of relief. And then don't move. You see people going like this. And I'm like, what are you doing? This is not doing anything but causing you to burn more energy. Just lay there still. So he would leave the room, right? So the one day I come in and I'm taking a class and I'm in the back next to him. And I'm setting up my stuff and I sit down and he's on his mat next to me walking up and down on his hands and handstand up and down. I'm like, if you can do that, you are not leaving ever again because you think it's too hot. Because it's not too hot. And he was like, yeah, but this isn't. I'm like, that scares me. You know what I'm saying? Like, he knew he could do it. Like, I could see that he could do it. But somebody that can't do it or they're not there yet, I mean, they could fall over. Not that they're going to get hurt because where you're falling. You're not you're going to cartwheel out of it. Especially in a handstand, if you go to do a handstand and you don't make it, you're going to cartwheel out of it. Yeah, you don't ever see anyone flip over totally in a handstand. In a headstand, people will fall over, but you're all right. But we can talk about inversions at another point. So everyone's different. He was more afraid of the heat. I was more afraid of like having a room full of people and everyone's doing cartwheels, like that's why I don't really suggest handstand. People do them, but I don't always see the point in that. Like I feel like if you want to do gymnastics, you do gymnastics, but people like to do those things, so I don't care. I let them do them. The only time I'm really strict really is when I teach the Hot 26 because that's the sequence. But there can be a little bit of room for play in the other classes, and especially the experienced people. That's okay. But anyhow, so okay, so like I was saying, so this guy, everyone's different. I mean, I've seen people, they can't touch their toes, and then all of a sudden I'm seeing them doing handstands. Or somebody's complaining that they have back issues, and then they're doing yoga for a month, and they're like, my back hasn't felt better. I have to come to yoga. And I'm like, because there's something to it. It works. It works. So if you're worried, you're skeptical, you think you're going to make a fool out of yourself, I hear it all. I'm not flexible. I'm going to split my pants. I've heard it all. And let me tell you something. Just do it. Go in the back of the room. If you're afraid you're going to split your pants, go in the back of the room. It's fine. So you have a rip in your pants. It's no big deal. So, let me think of what else I can tell you. All right, I'm going to suggest if you're going to take a hot yoga class in your town for the first time, I would make sure that the day before you start drinking, or the day or two before you start increasing your water, especially if you're not a water drinker, because you want to sweat. And the more hydrated you are, the easier it's going to be. Now, there is going to come a point, if you stick with it, I know that you may not believe this, you are not going to feel the heat anymore. I don't feel the heat anymore. I feel it when I open the door, I walk in, the room feels hot, and then that's it. The next time I think about the heat is when I feel the sweat drip down my back. And if I'm 20 minutes or so into class and the sweat hasn't dripped down my back, I know it's not as hot as it usually is. If I'm in there 5 minutes and I'm pouring with sweat, I know it's hotter than normal. But I can't tell. Like, I don't feel the difference. It always feels the same to me because I spend a lot of time in the heat. That's it. Your body is going to acclimate to it. It's going to acclimate to it. Another thing that you want to be a little bit cautious of is what you eat before you take class. Some people tell me that they need to eat before class, something. They need to have a piece of fruit, a half a granola bar, something. Me personally, I don't want anything in my stomach before I do anything. Before I run, before I take yoga, I don't want to eat anything. I'll have coffee, I drink my coffee black, and that's it. That's me. I've heard people feel both ways. So you're going to have to figure out what it is that works for you. My suggestion would be not to eat anything too heavy, and my suggestion would be to stick with fruit, but not bananas, because they say that the bananas take a long time to digest, and I can tell you that they repeat on you, because I've done that before, where I've had a banana and I'm like, oh man, this is repeating on me. As far as people throwing up, all these other things that I've heard, I'm going to pass out, I'm going to throw up, I'm going to this, that. Very few instances where people throw up. Very few people throw up. One time I had a girl, she threw up. She was in the bathroom. Nobody has ever thrown up in the classroom. And she had been out drinking the day before, so regardless of hot yoga, she was throwing up anyway. Like, that was just it. And she knew it too. So I'll tell you what happened to me, so I can speak from my own experience. I went through 2 hot yoga teacher trainings. I was at one point teaching about 15 classes a week, working full-time and a part-time job. I never, ever, ever had trouble with the heat. I always drank enough water, always. There were times where I was taking 2 or 3 classes a day, never had trouble with the heat. One morning, I got up to take a class with a student who comes to the studio. She teaches like a kickboxing class, and I tried to make it to the studio, and I got lost, but I was in the neighborhood of my studio, so I went to take the 6 a.m. class because I was in the area, and I'm like, well, let me just take something. I don't know what it was. It wasn't anything I've eaten. I didn't drink anything funny. I don't know what it was. For whatever reason, about halfway through the class, all of a sudden, it was like, whoa, whoa. I'm like, oh my God, the room is spinning, and my stomach is like upside down. Like, I felt like I was getting sick. So I'm like, okay, don't panic. Lay down, child's pose, and it will pass. And that's exactly what I did. I laid down, I put my head down, and I just stayed down for like a couple of minutes. It passed, and I was able to finish the class. I didn't finish the class strong, but I was able to finish. That was the only time that happened to me. Another time, this is so bizarre. It was my birthday the day before, and I had dinner, and I had 1 beer at dinner. And I didn't eat anything funny. I don't know what it was. But anyway, the next morning, it was nice enough out. I wanted to jog to work. So it's about a 7-mile jog to the studio, maybe 8 miles, something like that. I jogged to the studio, and I was fine. Now, I'm probably about 5 minutes into teaching a 90-minute class, and I swear to God, I could feel like I was getting ready to throw up. Like, it was like right here. And I was like, oh my God, I cannot throw up in my own class. So in this series, you can't have water until it's probably about 20 minutes into class. So I'm like, I'm just going to breathe. I'm just going to breathe. I'm just going to get through it. And I did. I made it to the water break, because even as the teacher, you're not going to drink water when you tell everyone else they can't. So I made it to the water break. I had water. It passed. I was fine. I had to jog home. I jogged home, and I've never. What? um, I jogged home. I was fine. I went back to teach the class that night at 5, and I drove back. And I taught the class. I was fine. I went out after class and I threw up. And it was just water. I don't know. It was like my body was begging for it all day. And finally I had given in to it. I don't know what it was. What? I don't know what that means. Sorry. Oh, here are my hands. Um, so that was it. It was it just happened that one time. So it's very uncommon for someone to throw up. It's very uncommon for somebody to, sometimes people get a little dizzy. You just tell them to lay down. It's fine. Um, what else? I don't know. I think that's really it. um, but that's if you take hot yoga. If you take regular yoga, you probably won't experience any of that. Um, yin, yin yoga. So this one, I did this teacher training probably about maybe 4 years ago, 5 years ago, maybe. Yin is very different. It's the kind of yoga where you're you're not moving from one posture to the next. You maybe do about 5 postures, but you hold them. But you're propped up like with pillows and blankets, and you hold the postures, and you really get more into the ligaments and the connective tissue, not so much into the muscle. So the next day you're usually sore, but in a totally different way. That's yin. If you get a chance to take yin, it's great. It's like a great compliment to somebody that does a lot of really hard working out, because what they say that yin does is that it helps the body produce its own, I have a hard time with this word, hyaluronic acid, which helps to keep you young. So it's like we lose hyaluronic acid as we age, and as you start to do yin, it helps to make the body produce it, so it helps to keep you young. It's like the connective tissue in your body. Restorative is even more relaxation. Like that, you're propped up to the point where you could fall asleep. Like you don't even move. It's totally different. So if you're someone that does a lot of running and spinning and hard workouts like that, a lot of lifting weights, it's nice to do something that's completely different, because it's going to give you a totally different feel. And it's going to be a little bit more relaxing, and you might find it to be very difficult to stay still. Like I said, people struggle all the time with the trying to stay still part. And it's funny because a lot of the people that were so reluctant to try the yin class really wound up falling in love with it, because it is so relaxing and you do go really deep into the postures. It's just a little bit different. It's a lot different. It's like yang would be running, spinning, hot yoga, vinyasa. Like it's hard, it's tough, it's like very masculine energy. It's the sun. Yin is the opposite. It's the moon, it's darkness, it's feminine, it's going inside. So for me, when I teach that, I try not to even really speak that much. Like I'll direct you into the posture, but then for the 5 or 7 minutes that you're in the posture, I don't even talk. I just let you, that kind of stuff. Um, but I think that's pretty much it. Basically, my suggestion is if you want to take yoga, you want to learn about it, just go do it. And if you're really worried, you think that you want to know the postures beforehand, or some of the postures beforehand, there's a video on my channel that describes them, but every teacher is going to teach different. So the alignment may be a little bit different depending on where they studied and who they studied under and what their reasoning is. I mean, sometimes like I've taken classes where I'm like, gee, I wonder why she sequenced it like that. Like I'm just wondering what was the reason for it, because I wouldn't have done it that way. And I'm just wondering. And sometimes, like we'll talk about it like, oh, well, I did this because of that. Whatever. But I do want to make a video about inversions and back bends, because I feel like there are a couple of things that get done a little bit incorrectly, and you don't want to cause an injury. I mean, let's face it, your head, right, your cervical spine, your neck is meant to hold up your head, which is what, 8 pounds? It's not meant to hold the weight of your body that is, 100 pounds or 200 pounds or whatever you weigh. So you want to make sure that you have great alignment so that you don't hurt your neck. That's all. And the same thing with back bending. People that feel like they're crunching into their low back, that's not good. And I did that. Like, I used to feel pain in my back, and I just thought that that was normal. Like, if nobody ever tells you, then how do you know? Like, oh, this hurts. But you're like, oh, well, you figure you're doing something physical, it's going to hurt, right? But you shouldn't feel pain. You feel stretching. You may feel like something may feel a little tight. You have to breathe into it. But if you feel crunching and pain, then something is wrong. And you want to make sure that you're doing it correctly. So I definitely want to get to a video on back bends. I want to do a video on inversions and arm balances, because there's a whole there's a whole debate about the arm balance thing. Basically, some teachers feel like it's okay for students to do arm balances with like anything that's done on your side, in my opinion, should only be done on one arm, because you can't keep your shoulders in alignment if you use both. And if you don't care about shoulder alignment, okay, then I want you to walk over to one of your shelves that are hanging on the wall, and I want you to pull out one of the pins and see what happens. Shelf is going to collapse with the weight of whatever is on it, right? Well, that's what's going to happen to your shoulders. So and I've heard teachers say, yeah, but they're excited, they want to try it. But if they try it and they hurt their shoulder, they're never going to be able to do it. If they learn how to do the alignment correctly, they're going to learn how to do it eventually. And if it takes them a year, it takes them a year, but it's going to take them how long to recover from a shoulder injury? So, you be the decision. You decide what you want to do. You want to do a handstanding correctly and, a headstanding correctly and compromise your neck, or do you want to wait until you're strong enough to do it, until you know how to do it? I would rather not do something, because you're going to cause an injury. And why do we want to get injured? We're trying to fix what's broken, not make matters worse. We got enough problems. So it's just something to think about. If you're doing an arm balance, I don't think there's any arm balance that you do on your side that you should do, not that I can think of, with two arms, because this shoulder will be forced to the back shoulder will be forced out of alignment, because you can't draw them both down. This one's got to come forward to get on it. And when this is forward, look at that's bad alignment. This is where the shoulder should be. So, but that's a video for another day. I just wanted to give you an idea, because a lot of times people will call up and they're like, I don't know what to take. I'm like, I'm a beginner. I've never done this before. My suggestion is, if you're going into hot yoga, make sure that you're well hydrated. Make sure that you haven't eaten too much. Make sure, bring a change of clothes. Bring a change of clothes, because you're going to sweat so much. You're not going to want to get into your car in all the sweaty, wet clothes. So bring something crappy to go home in, and bring a plastic bag, because most studios don't give out plastic bags anymore. And that's what you want to make sure that you bring. A towel, water, a mat, a change of clothes. And if you go to a regular studio, you don't need any of those things. You need a mat, but most of the times unheated studios don't even charge to rent a mat, because my theory is that they don't wear out as fast. Hot yoga, you can wear them out pretty fast, because there's a lot of like slipping and grabbing and that kind of stuff, and sliding. I've never ever had to pay for a rental yoga mat at an unheated studio. But bring your own. If you don't have one, you can usually buy them there. And a towel. You're going to need a towel, because the mat is going to get slick. And you don't want to fall. And you may fall just doing the postures. People fall all the time. But, you want to try to give yourself as much help as possible. But my suggestion is to just go and do it. So if you have any questions about yoga, feel free to comment below. If there's any special yoga video that you want me to do, or like I always say, if there's a body part or a posture that you're interested in working on, let me know, because then next time I make a video, I'll do it. A lot of times people, back pain is common, knee pain is common, um, or people that they're like they want to lose weight. People that want to lose weight. Yoga is great. The best thing about hot yoga, in my opinion, for weight loss is it's going to change the way you eat, because if you fall in love with hot yoga, you're not going to want to miss class, and you're going to have to adjust what you eat so that you can go to class. My suggestion would be, if you can get to class in the morning, first thing in the morning, 6 a.m. class, that would be the time to do it. Get your metabolism up for the day. You'll get more out of it in the long run. If you're not a morning person and you can't do that, then you just get there whenever you can. But, you know, if you take a 12 o'clock class, I would hold off on eating. But if you have to eat, I wouldn't eat any later than 10:30. A lipstick on my teeth again. Always. And what else? I guess that's really it. Also, don't compare yourself to anyone. That's another thing. Don't compare yourself to anyone, because everybody's body is different. And like I said before, sometimes it's a genetic thing. Sometimes, you know, somebody's just got a bigger upper body and they're stronger to do these arm balances. Somebody else may have a stronger bottom half and they could hold Warrior 2 for 12 minutes and they don't think anything of it. Everyone's body is different. And it's also where you come from. You know, like somebody like Bikram that grew up in India doing it since the time he's 3, his body is programmed in a way that our bodies aren't, because I was 18 when I started yoga. And what I did before yoga was cheerleading when I was a kid, because when I was in high school as a rock star, I wasn't going to be no cheerleader. But that's a whole other video. So when I was a cheerleader as a kid, I used to do a lot of splits. I was very flexible that way. My alignment was awful, which is why I have problems with my hips now. So don't compare yourself to anyone, because if you're looking at somebody who is doing something crazy, chances are their alignment is probably pretty poor and they're going to suffer for it at another point. And that's why I try my best to correct alignment. Sometimes people don't want to hear it, so then you just let them do their thing. Let me think. Anything else? All right, Hot 26 will always be the same. A flow class will always be different. Yin class is very much turning in. It's totally different than anything else. Try them all, see what you like. My suggestion would be to try different teachers, even try different studios. You know, you may find in your town, I've found outside of the New York, New Jersey area, a lot of studios, they have like a class in the morning, a class at night. They don't really have classes all day, at least from what I've seen. So you may have to try a couple of different places and see what works for you. You know, you just trial and error. But my suggestion would be to give it more than just one class, because you may find something that you like versus something that just doesn't sit well with you, and then things change. You know, sometimes, you know, you could be like, oh, I didn't like this teacher on that day, and then I took a class with teacher on this day, and I liked the class, you know? Like, so sometimes it's has more to do with what's going on with you than what's going on in the class. Or you may find that you don't like a full class, you like a smaller class. Oh, and then another thing, a lot of studios will offer privates. They are expensive, but if you have an injury, or if you're really feeling that self-conscious about being in a yoga room with other people that may know what they're doing, and you feel like you don't, you can do privates. You could pick a teacher that you like, and you know, you can have this person for an hour and they can explain to you everything that you have questions about. Another thing is, our studio we have a couple of level 2 classes, but that's very subjective too. I took in a studio a couple of years back a level 3 class, and I was nervous going into the level 3 class, and I found it to be boring. Now, I don't consider myself by any means to be like, you know, a super crazy yogi. I mean, there are a lot of things I can't do. There are a lot of things I won't even attempt. But that class to me was boring. So what's hard for one person may not be hard for another person. So it's kind of hard to label something, you know, level 1 class, level 2 class. What I can tell you is that Hot 26 class in general is a beginner's class. So if you're going to take that class, just know that that's going to be a little bit easier to follow, and you're going to hold the postures a little bit longer to build strength. You'll probably be standing up for about an hour, maybe 45 minutes to an hour, and then you'll be on the floor for the rest of the time. But a flow class, you don't always know what to expect. And it's kind of hard to, and then how do you classify people? Like the guy that had a hard time staying in the room because it was hot, that was hard for him. But doing a handstand and walking up and down his mat was simple. So it's hard. How do what's easy for one person might not be easy for another person. And also, I wouldn't want to tell somebody, hey, you can't take that class. And what if it's the only class that they can get to in the day? My suggestion would be try it. If something is too hard and you're not ready for it, then just don't do it. But don't not take the whole class, because you're at least going to get a warm up. You're going to get a cool down. You're going to get a lot out of the class. So it's hard to, decide what's hard and what's not. And then it's also the girl that was out drinking the night before. Well, yeah, standing up is hard for her. But someone who is well rested and, ate well the day before and had a lot of water, the class is going to be easier for that person. So, you'll figure it out what it is that works for you, and you'll figure out whether you like hot yoga better versus than unheated yoga. My experience of what it seems like people that start with hot yoga find regular yoga to be boring. People that start with regular yoga seem to like that better. I like them both. I don't, I would do either. I have an unheated class at a gym, and I love that class. I mean, and what I love about it too, it's always the same people. They always come. It's like religious for them, that they're always there, the same people every week. And, I'll ask them what they want to work on, because it doesn't have to be like I can stop and explain things to them a little bit different, because it's not scripted like the Hot 26 class. Like, you have to do this for us to get to the next point. But if we're struggling with something in this class, we could stop and say, all right, I could say, well, where's your foot? Where do you feel it in your foot? Press down more into the big toe mound, and then like we can work that way a little bit more, which is different than the Hot 26, where you're on a schedule, you got to get it all done. And in 90 minutes for me, because I just find that I could get it done. I could probably, well, I know I do that class in an hour on Sunday morning at one studio. So I could get it done with people that know the postures, but if there are new people that come in, I won't do everything twice. I'll just do some postures twice, and some will only do once. It depends on the people. If I have people in there, they're experienced, they know the postures, we can go through it like that. I can get all 26 done in 60 minutes. Got a lot of new people, I have to make a lot of corrections, we slow it down a little bit. It's okay. Generally speaking, once again, general, a class that has more beginners, you kind of cater to the beginners. A class that has more regular people, and you only have one or two new people, then you kind of cater more to the regulars. But when it comes to Hot 26, it's the same class. It's like I just wouldn't be able to probably fit in all 26 twice in an hour if I had a lot of new people, because I want to make sure that there are some classic mistakes that you're going to see, and you want to make sure that you correct them immediately, because your body gets programmed, and you want to fix somebody sooner rather than later so that they don't have to break a habit. It's easier not to have to break a bad habit. And then the other thing is, what was I going to say? Oh, I forgot. I can't remember. A couple of classic mistakes. It's funny because like everyone makes the same mistakes. Like we just do that. So yeah, I'm always surprised when a new person comes in and doesn't make some of the mistakes. Let me think. Anything else? Nope. I don't think so. I think that's it. All right, we went through hot yoga, the difference between hot yoga and regular yoga, the difference between flow and Bikram, the difference between yin and restorative. Yin is more of like feeling it. Like you're going to feel like you're in the posture. Whereas restorative, it's almost like you're so meditative and so propped up, you don't feel anything. Anything alignment based or therapeutic based would probably deal a little bit more with a specific body part. If you took that class, like the teacher may say, we're going to work on shoulders today. And you'll do a lot of postures that cater to opening up the shoulders and the upper body, which you need all of that too. If you're going to back bend, you need to open up the shoulders and you need to open up the quads. So no matter what class you take, you're gonna get a movement. You're gonna feel it. And I guess that's it. I don't know. Anyway, if you have any questions or there's anything that you want to know more about, feel free to comment below, and I will see when I can make another yoga video. All right, guys, thanks for watching. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.